because it can only lead to one thing, and that's very bad. You know what that thing is. I think it's a very dangerous, terrible thing. And I think it's terrible when we can't know the results of an election the night of the election in a modern-day age of computer. I think it's a terrible thing. And I happen to think it was a terrible decision for our country made by the Supreme Court. I think it was a terrible decision for our country. And I think it's a very dangerous decision because you're going to have 1 or 2 or 3 states, depending on how it ends up, where they're tabulating ballots, and the rest of the world is waiting to find out. And I think there's great danger to it, and I think a lot of fraud and misuse can take place. I think it's a terrible decision by the Supreme Court, a terrible decision. Now, I don't know if that's going to be changed because we're going to go in the night of, as soon as that election's over, we're going in with our lawyers. But we don't want to have Pennsylvania where you have a political governor, a very partisan guy, and we don't want to have other states like Nevada where you have the head of the Democratic clubhouse as your governor. We don't want to be in a position where he's allowed to every day watch ballots come in. Gee, if we could only find 10,000 more ballots. Because we're doing great in Nevada, we're doing great in Arizona, we're doing great all over. But if you take Nevada or Pennsylvania, and everyone knows what happens in Philadelphia, you don't have to say it, but I've read about it for years, and I don't think it's fair that we have to wait a long period of time after the election. If people wanted to get their ballots in, they should have gotten their ballots in long before that, a long time. They don't have to put their ballots in the same day. They could have put their ballots in a month ago. And we think it's a ridiculous decision. Thank you.
President Trump has told confidants that he'll declare victory on Tuesday night if it looks like he's ahead, according to 3 sources familiar with his private comments. That's even if the Electoral College outcome still hinges on large numbers of uncounted votes in key states like Pennsylvania. The latest, speaking to reporters on Sunday evening, Trump denied that he would declare victory prematurely before adding, "I think it's a terrible thing when ballots can be collected after an election. I think it's a terrible thing when states are allowed to tabulate ballots for a long period of time after the election is over." He continued, "I think it's terrible that we can't know the results of an election the night of the election. We're going to go in the night of. As soon as that election's over, we're going in with our lawyers. We don't want to have Pennsylvania where you have a political governor, a very partisan guy. We don't want to be in a position where he's allowed every day to watch ballots come in, see if we can only find 10,000 more ballots." Behind the scenes, Trump has privately talked through this scenario in some detail in the last few weeks, describing plans to walk up to a podium on election night and declare he has won. For this to happen, his allies expect he would need to either win or have a commanding lead in Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Texas, Iowa, Arizona, and Georgia. Why it matters. Trump's team is preparing to falsely claim that mail-in ballots counted after November 3rd, a legitimate count expected to favor Democrats, are evidence of election fraud. Of all the election fuckery that can happen, this is the only thing that's actually concerning. The idea of Trump using the military to drive around and do crazy shit or the whatever bullshit or whatever, this is probably the... Many prognosticators say that on election night, Trump will likely appear ahead in Pennsylvania, though the state's final outcome could change substantially as mail-in ballots are counted over the following days. Trump's team is preparing to claim baselessly that if that process changes the outcome in Pennsylvania from the picture on election night, then Democrats would have stolen the election. Trump advisors have been laying the groundwork for this strategy for weeks, but this is the first account of Trump explicitly discussing his election night intentions. What they're saying. Asked for comment, the Trump campaign's communications director, Tim Murtaugh, said, "This is nothing but people trying to create doubt about a Trump victory. When he wins, he's going to say so." Trump campaign senior advisor Jason Miller predicted that Trump will be reelected handily, and no amount of post-election Democratic thievery will be able to change the results. Reality check. Mail-in ballots counted after Election Day, as set forth in state-by-state rules, are as legitimate as in-person votes recorded on November 3rd. Many states won't be done counting mail ballots by Tuesday night. In Pennsylvania, state law prevents election officials from counting mail-in ballots before Election Day. Night of counts may be deceptive. It could be days, if not weeks, before we know who won Pennsylvania. If it's a close race, this could also be true for other states, given the record numbers of Americans who voted by mail this year. Pennsylvania Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar said on NBC's Meet the Press today that there could be 10 times as many mail-in ballots this year than in 2016, so yes, it will take longer to count. I expect that the overwhelming majority of ballots in Pennsylvania, that's mail-in and absentee ballots, as well as in-person ballots, will be counted within a matter of days, Bukvari said. What we're watching. Miller on ABC's This Week predicted 290-plus electoral votes for Trump on election night, and he claimed Democrats are just going to try to steal it back after the election. He described any prospective challenges by Democrats as hijinks or lawsuits or whatever kind of nonsense. Between the lines, Trump advisors are more optimistic about winning than they were 3 weeks ago based on my conversations with multiple senior campaign officials over the past week, including 2 officials with direct knowledge of sensitive internal data. They said analyses of early vote totals in battleground states indicate he's doing substantially worse in Iowa and Georgia compared with this point in 2016, but better than expected in Texas, Nevada, North Carolina, Arizona, and Wisconsin. Just a few weeks ago, senior Trump advisors were bearish about Wisconsin and had reduced TV advertising there to an insignificant figure. A senior campaign official told me then that the state didn't figure in his path to 270 electoral votes. But that appears to have changed. In recent days, senior Trump advisors have privately expressed growing optimism about Wisconsin based on their analysis of early vote data. The other side, it comes as no surprise that Donald Trump and his campaign plan to declare victory before all the votes are counted. That has been his strategy for months, and nobody should fall for it, Senator Bernie Sanders said in a statement to Axios. It's why he is demonizing mail-in ballots and sabotaging the Postal Service. We will not allow this to happen. Every vote must and will be counted. The most likely, I still think it's unlikely, but if something were to happen, this would be probably the most likely thing to happen. You want to know what's really sad right now, in my opinion? The sad thing is that people aren't nervous because of how people are going to vote. People are nervous because they're not sure if all the votes are going to be counted. I think it's a really sad reality right now.
Well, they will be counted, right?
No, we don't know that.
Well, I mean, can they actually just, like, not count votes? Can't the Dems stop this?
No, the worry, the main path to destruction right now, what people are worried about is that Trump is going to have enough of a lead in key states that he's just going to call the election.
Night,
on the 3rd, on that night, and be like, we're done. And then use the Supreme Court to stop any more vote tabulation. That's the worry. Yeah.
There's no way that they would go along with it, the Supreme Court. It's just there's no law that says that's the case, though. The current law, doesn't it say that
they used the Bush v. Gore case, stopped the 3rd or 4th recount, I think, in Florida. So, I mean...
But that was because it wasn't going to be done by a certain date, right?
Yeah, but what if this takes a long time? Like...
I guess, well, they would need the Pennsylvania governor, who is Democratic, to order the vote to be stopped, I think.
This would also be, like, not even a recount. This would be unprecedented. Because this would just be stopping votes.
So much unprecedented shit, though.
Yeah.
I would hope the Supreme Court would rule, well, it's called the U.S. flag, you stupid fuck. This is the only flag that the United States federally has and recognizes. Why the fuck are you acting like a different